Right now, somewhere in a hospital room, a person is dying. Their heart has minutes left. Their breathing has gone shallow and irregular. By every clinical measure, they're nearly gone. And yet, inside their skull, something is happening that doctors are only beginning to understand. Their brain may be more active in this moment than it's been in years. That sentence sounds impossible, but it's not speculation. It's measured, recorded data. And it's stranger than anything religion ever imagined. Let's start with what we actually know happens in the body. In the final 24 hours, organs begin shutting down in a fairly predictable sequence. Circulation slows. The kidneys stop filtering. Breathing becomes irregular, sometimes pausing for 10-20 seconds at a time. This is called Cheney-Stokes breathing, and hospice nurses see it constantly. It looks alarming. It usually isn't painful. The body is simply running out of the resources it needs to keep every system online at once, so it starts triaging. But here's where it gets strange. While the body is shutting down, hearing appears to be one of the very last senses to go. In 2020, researchers at the University of British Columbia recorded brain activity in dying hospice patients using EEG while playing them simple tones. Even in patients who were unresponsive, completely unable to speak or move, their brains were still processing sound, still reacting to it the same way a healthy brain does. That's why hospice workers will tell you almost universally, talk to the dying as if they can hear you, because they very likely can, right up until the end. So the senses don't all switch off together. They fade in a specific order, and hearing holds on the longest, which raises an uncomfortable question. If hearing is still active, what about everything else happening inside the mind? This is where the research gets genuinely disturbing in the best possible way. In 2013, a neuroscientist named Jimo Borjigin at the University of Michigan ran an experiment on dying rats, monitoring their brain activity as their hearts stopped. What she found broke the assumption that the dying brain simply powers down. In the seconds after cardiac arrest, the rats showed a massive surge of highly organized brain activity, specifically in the gamma wave range, the same frequency associated with conscious awareness, memory recall, and focused attention in a fully alert brain. The dying brain wasn't fading. For a brief window, it was lighting up more intensely than during normal waking life. In 2022, a nearly identical pattern showed up in a human patient for the first time. An 87-year-old man was being monitored with EEG for epilepsy when he suffered a fatal heart attack. Because the equipment was already recording, doctors captured 900 seconds of continuous brain activity, spanning the moments before and after his heart stopped. In the seconds surrounding death, his brain produced a surge of gamma oscillations in regions associated with memory retrieval and dreaming, the same regions active when a healthy brain recalls a vivid memory or has a powerful dream. Scientists still aren't certain what this means subjectively, but the pattern lines up with something that's been described for centuries in survivor accounts: a sudden flood of vivid, lifelike memory in the final moments. Then there's an even stranger phenomenon, one doctors have documented for over a century, but only recently started studying seriously. It's called terminal lucidity. Patients with severe dementia, patients who haven't recognized their own family in years, who can't form coherent sentences, sometimes experience a sudden, brief return of clarity hours, or even minutes before death. They recognize loved ones. They speak coherently. Sometimes they ask for specific people by name. Then, shortly after, they die. Researchers studying hospice and palliative care have documented hundreds of these cases, and right now, nobody can fully explain it. Some researchers suspect it's connected to that same late surge of organized neural activity. The brain, stripped of whatever damage or disease was disrupting it, briefly fires in a more coordinated way right before the system supporting it fail completely. So here's the picture starting to form. In the final hours, the body shuts down in a fairly orderly, well-documented sequence, but the brain doesn't necessarily follow the same fading pattern. Hearing stays active far longer than expected, and in the final moments, instead of simply going dark, many dying brains appear to surge, producing intense organized activity in regions tied to memory and awareness. Nobody knows for certain what this activity feels like from the inside, and that's the honest scientific answer. We don't have access to subjective experience that we can directly verify, but the timing is consistent enough across rats, humans, and decades of survivor reports of near-death experiences to suggest something real is happening, not a slow fade to black, but possibly the opposite, a final surge. What we do know is this: the dying brain is not simply shutting down quietly while the body fails around it. Right up until those final seconds, it may be doing something closer to the opposite, pulling old memories forward, lighting up the same regions responsible for vivid recall and dreaming, and staying open, at least to sound, longer than almost anything else. If you've ever sat beside someone in their final hours and wondered whether they could still hear you, whether anything was still happening behind their eyes, the science suggests the answer might be yes. Maybe not in the way we'd describe consciousness while fully awake, but not nothing either. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. We've spent thousands of years building stories about what happens in the final moments before death. And it turns out the real answer, sitting quietly in EEG recordings most people will never see, might be just as strange as anything we ever imagined. The lights don't necessarily go out gradually. They might, for one last moment, burn brighter than they ever did.